Hello, okay, welcome to part 3 of the tutorial on the City Jungle poem. As a reminder, tutorial 1 we did the analysis and the annotation of the poem. In tutorial 2 we organized our annotation into a sort of structure that we can use, and in this third tutorial we're actually going to write the answers out now. So just as a reminder, we had the question here, how does the poet, so we're going to do how does the poet vividly portray parts of the city. So that was what we were looking for to answer. Okay, so using the Peel format, okay, we make the point. So let's look at the first paragraph that I would suggest is a good answer. Okay, the poet uses personification to vividly portray parts of the city. So that's the first tool that the poet is going to use. Okay, and then we can then give the examples. For example, radiators grin, headlights stare, and a motorbike snarls. So P for the point, E for the example. Okay, we can then think about describing the effect. Let's try and do a different color. Okay. Just highlight this part. By giving inanimate objects like radiators, headlights and motorbikes human abilities or qualities, the effect is to dramatize life in the city and create more powerful images in the reader's mind. Okay, then we can go on. Let's go to the next section, which is when the poet says radiators grin like a reptile and thin headlights stare, he wants the reader to imagine the hostility of the city at night, to feel the cold predatory menace. A motorbike snarls is another threatening image that the poet puts into readers' minds, where the loud, coarse sound of a motorbike engine is likened to a snarl. So that you can see after the first examples are given, we spend the rest of the paragraph explaining and elaborating why the tool of personification is used to vividly portray parts of the city. So we're explaining why that tool works. Okay, and then the last part of the Peel paragraph is to link back. So therefore the poet uses personification as an effective tool to create an intimidating and threatening tone, comparing the city to a jungle, as in the title, which sets the context for this hostile imagery from the beginning. So we introduce that link at the end using the word therefore, or something similar to that. So you can see here that we've effectively constructed a Peel answer. Point, the example, then the explanation and the elaboration of those examples to prove why the point is being answered, that that particular tool is being used to vividly portray parts of the city. And then we use a link at the end, introducing that with the word therefore. So this is how you structure your paragraphs. And as I said, it's taking most of the information and the examples and the structure from the first two tutorials, which is, we annotated the poem and then we've structured it. So this is a good suggested answer. Okay, let's have a look at the second paragraph. And what you can do here is maybe pause the tutorial and try to construct the paragraph yourself, or to summarize the paragraph yourself by identifying the point that's been made, the examples that are being introduced, and then the explanation, the elaboration, and finally the linking sentence at the end. Okay, so if you pause, okay, hopefully you would have identified these. So let's just quickly go through the second paragraph. The point that we're making is that the poet also uses metaphors. So the first point was personification, the second point is metaphors. Let's highlight the examples. lizard cars, hunched houses, newspapers shuffle. And then we spend the rest of the paragraph explaining and elaborating by describing a car, a house, or a newspaper in terms of something else, i.e. a metaphor. The poet can create more powerful images in the reader's mind through implied shared traits. So comparing cars to a lizard, for example, suggests the vehicles have reptile-like qualities, such as being cold-blooded and predatory, cruising at night as if stalking prey. When something is hunched, the second example, it suggests being bent over, either in pain or as protecting yourself against the elements, such as the weather, or being attacked. The poet uses a hunched house coughing at the roadside to create an image of illness of the city, which the reader could infer is a sickness of the city, such as pollution. And then the final example, the poet uses the metaphor of newspapers shuffling by, hands in their pockets, to convey the image of being resigned, forlorn, and dejected by the harsh city life. So a metaphor. Okay, and then the final part of the paragraph is the link. Therefore, the poet has effectively used metaphors to convey strong images of life in the city, describing common objects like cars or houses or newspapers, etc., through more animated words, such as lizards, hunched, or shuffling. Okay, so that is the second Peel paragraph that we would have used, and again, you can see it's the same thing. And again, I bring your attention to the fact that the explaining and elaboration of the examples is by far the largest part of the paragraph. You have to spend time explaining and elaborating why your examples prove the point of the paragraph. In this way, it proves why the poet has used metaphors to portray parts of the city. That's where all of the explanation and elaboration comes in, and that's where you're going to score the highest marks. Okay, let's have a look at the final paragraph that I would suggest you use to answer this question. One moment. Okay, and hopefully you will have paused the tutorial and identified the key parts of the Peel paragraph that is in this last paragraph example. Okay, so let's just go through this. The first part is the point, which is the poet also uses alliteration and onomatopoeia to vividly portray parts of the city. Okay, so we're specifically answering the question. Okay, and again, I would point out that we got that information, alliteration, onomatopoeia, from the annotation, analysis, and then the structuring parts of the tutorials. Okay, so we give the examples of onomatopoeia and alliteration, which is cars cruise, hunched houses cough, and gutters gargle. Okay, and then we spend the remainder of the time explaining and elaborating why these tools of alliteration and onomatopoeia serve to create vivid images of the city, drawing the reader's attention to specific parts of the poem through alliteration and onomatopoeia are other tools the poet has used to create more vivid images of the city. The k created in the first example is a sharp percussive sound which supports the image of a predatory reptile out hunting. The h sound in the second example supports the idea of illness, as this is the sound a person makes when they have a deep chest cough. And the g sound of the last example is the sound a person makes when they gargle to clear their throats. And the image of a clogged, dirty gutter fits this image well, someone clearing their throat. Okay, so those are all the elaboration and the explanation. And then we come to the final part of the paragraph, which is the link. Therefore, the use of alliteration and onomatopoeia allows the poet to paint more vivid images of the city by drawing the reader's attention to specific parts of the poem. Okay, and again, look how much bigger the explaining and elaborating of the examples is in this paragraph. So you're beginning to see the pattern now of how your answers should look to score the highest marks. Okay, so there's 3 examples. You can have a go at writing the last paragraph in this suggested answer yourself, and you can even send it to me and I'll have a look at it for you. And that should be discussing the last tools that we identified in our annotation, analysis and structure, which I think was imagery, tone and theme. Or if you want, you can even have a go at structure. I don't mind. So, but follow the same format and try to explain and elaborate in lots of detail about why the examples fit the point. Okay, that's all. Thank you, and I'll be back soon with another poem to analyze. Thank you.